everybody, and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Taylor Rockwell, and it's Tuesday, which means it's time to do some MLS updating. Here with me to do so, I've got two friendly fellows. Up first, a man who prior to recording said we have so many things to get through on this episode. Joe Lowry, when do you grow concerned about the length of an episode? Like prior to recording, during recording, when is the first moment that you're like, oh, this is going to be a lengthy one?
Well prior.
Okay.
Depending on how quickly things get put into the dock after a weekend, up to 24 hours in advance, I would say. That's probably on the table, yeah.
Is there a TR hosting tax as well? When it's me in charge versus Ryan Bailey, I feel like you can add another 20% to the
I think you know the answer to that, Taylor. And that is part of why we know and love you very much.
Sure. Thank you for that, Joe. With us as well, another fine fellow, a man who is worried about the length of this episode and also the length of time he'll be waiting in TSA lines over the next couple months. It's Jeff Reuter. Hello, Jeff. You excited to travel, my friend?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
No finer place to head towards right now than the Atlanta airport, which many of your favorite
Has
U.S.
something happened?
men's
What do
soccer
you mean?
journalists
Yes.
will be heading there. So you will be seeing a lot of this. It's like, you know that thing where the U.S. lineup drops or like MLS Cup lineups drop and suddenly your social media feed is about 15 journalists tweeting the exact same.
Yes.
Like Gio Reyna makes the lineup, Gio Reyna makes the lineup, Gio Reyna makes the lineup, Tim Weah misses it. It's going to be that, but it's going to be a bunch of reporters complaining about TSA lines.
I think we should all just appoint one of you for that job. You know, like I'm happy for it to be you, Jeff. I mean, I think
I'm happy for it not to be. To be fair,
we just don't need everybody's following everybody. We could just have Doug do it. Or it could be you. It doesn't really make a difference to me. But I think that's one way that we can work to really efficientize USMNT coverage. Oh, speaking of USMNT coverage, Jeff, what are you going to be doing, or what's something you got cooking up for the Guardian right now?
Oh boy, I've got a lot of these kind of like midterm pieces that I'm going to be trying to put out over the next 2 months to come with it. Some of them are off field and some of them are a little more granular in the weeds coaching and logistics planning on the sporting side of all of this sort of stuff. I had a yogurt company reach out with a pitch about Anthony Robinson. And if you read a piece from me that involves one mention of ferments, I'm sorry.
Ferments is the name. I'm sure it's lovely. You can sponsor us if you'd like ferments.
What are the stipulations when the yogurt company schedules the interview? Does it have to be yogurt-based? Is it just top 5 flavors? Or are you allowed to ask about other things?
Jeff has to come in, I think, lathered in yogurt, as far as I understand it, right?
Like, yeah, you've done one
peanut
of these.
butter babies. Yeah. I'm not.
They send you enough. They load up your bathtub. They say, "In you go, boy," and then you say, "I'm a strawberry. I'm a strawberry," and away you go.
Yep.
See, this is why I shouldn't be allowed to host, because now I really do have like 7 questions about yogurt-based interviews. Like, does he know that he is hawking yogurt products?
Yes.
Does he have a strong passion about them?
No.
What flavor is his favorite flavor?
Who knows?
I love the idea that someone like in big yogurt is standing behind him, rubbing his back as he's eating his breakfast. Like, yes, Jedi. Yes, Jedi. Lick the lid, Jedi.
Who's in charge of big yogurt? Is it the Chobani family?
I don't know, man. Yoplait is still pretty top dog. Like, I'm not saying that's my go-to, but brand recognition-wise, they've still got to be on top, right?
I think somehow this all funnels to a mega conglomerate owned by Disney. So
yeah, good point.
Which is then owned by the Rockefellers, I think. That's how it works. America! TSA, let's get it. I would nominate Charlie Bone, by the way, as my TSA update.
Yeah,
I feel like every time I've tried to complain about like an MLS function or
planning
or infrastructure, he's just like, it's fine. There's worse problems. I feel like Charlie is a good sort of level barometer for
Yes.
Yes.
Love that. That's such a great... Charlie's the best. That's a great take.
Charlie's the best. I'm looking forward to
TSA
seeing
detain him. And we'll see how chilly he is then. Until that happens, let's talk about the past weekend in Major League Soccer. We're going to talk about some of the biggest results of the weekend. Joe, tell me about San Diego 2, Xavier Gozo, and Real Salt Lake 2. I feel like that's the billing they get now. For now.
A little bit. I mean, I don't think Xavier Gozo is the best player on this RSL team, but it does seem like he's getting better from one week to the next, which I'm enjoying very much. Taylor asked us for these opening segment games about which of the games from the weekend felt the biggest. And I think this, to me, is the game that felt the biggest. Not necessarily because of the result on either side, although more for RSL than for San Diego, because San Diego are an upper echelon kind of team, and RSL are fighting to get there. We've talked a lot about them this year. Less because of that, and more because of just how good this game was. If this game hadn't been played in the afternoon sun of San Diego, this would be an all-time MLS classic. That is the only thing, I swear, that held it back. This was two teams with a ton of talented players with clear ideas of how they wanted to play. Every couple of years for me, there are these like real tentpole sort of games. I remember long ago, it was at the Benz. It was NYC FC taking on Atlanta United. It was the early
not
good.
that long ago.
It's true, but I mean, we're probably pushing almost a decade now that
That's
that
nuts.
game was.
Yeah, no, this is their 10th year.
Yeah, it's weird.
Crazy.
But it was early Atlanta United, and it was NYC FC with some folks that I think we've sort of canceled nowadays for good reason. But like really, really, really good teams with a lot of good players, and that was my moment of, oh wow, like this is actually getting better now than it was 5 years ago, kind of when I was only barely paying attention. And this game to me is sort of like a run of the mill Sunday evening. But the game was so much fun. This was San Diego building from the back, and they're must-see TV every time they play. This is RSL pressing high in a really narrow, man-oriented structure, trying to make life difficult for San Diego, and succeeding quite often in this game. And then it was RSL having chances of their own, created through both team-wide principles of players understanding exactly where they're supposed to be and how they're supposed to rotate, and then also individual quality. When Morgan Guilavogui and Sanabria are the two assist men in this game for RSL. Those are two new signings for this team. RSL looks like they've absolutely nailed their recruitment. Those players both look like well above average MLS players, if not absolute stars in this league. And then maybe my favorite part of this game, Taylor, and this will get to the Gozo bit. We had Gozo playing as a right wing back, as he's done for RSL this year. And Manu Dua is a left-sided center back for San Diego. And those two went at it in this game. And it was like two of the best athletes and best at specific things players that we've ever seen in MLS history. I just had so much fun watching this game, and I very much hope we get to see it again later in the year in a game that matters even a little bit more.
Joe, if that was the game that made you feel like the quality and style is improving, which game from the weekend did the opposite, and why was it Atlanta DC United?
Oh, I will hold my hands up and say, after Sam Jones, I believe, put on Blue Sky that this was in the bottom 10 for total XG games in the American Soccer Analysis database, I did not watch. I'm like kind of trying to figure out where Atlanta are right now. I'm a little less interested in DC because we still haven't seen Montaigne from the start, and I feel like there's a little bit more to be done there. But yeah, maybe that's the one, Taylor.
Yeah, man. I did watch that game, like on in the background, and then I watched the highlights just to make sure I hadn't missed anything. And when the extended highlights feature like long conversations about why there hasn't been more created and what that means, and that's considered a highlight, not the most impactful of results. To go back to the one you did want to mention, Joe, do you feel like San Diego or RSL are in the like better, stronger position at time of recording?
I think San Diego still, and Jeff, I'm actually curious what your take on that is. I'm really high on RSL, and every time I see them play, I feel more and more validated for that opinion. I think we're all sort of in that bucket these days. I mean, their results have been good this year. They opened very, very shorthanded with a narrow loss against Vancouver where they were not embarrassed by any means. They beat Seattle at home. They take care of business on the road in Atlanta. They beat Austin as they should, and they play San Diego tight on the road. I mean, there's some tough games in there to start your season. You get Vancouver, Seattle, and San Diego, and you take 4 points from those 3 games and look pretty good while you do it. I'm impressed with that. At the same time, San Diego was not quite at full strength in this game, although they basically were. There are a few days on the back of a heartbreaking loss to Toluca that ended their CONCACAF Champions Cup run. And this is a team that's been playing more games, right? So I am still very, very much a San Diego believer. I think they're an elite MLS team right now, and I don't envision that changing at any point in the season. But that RSL kind of outplayed them in San Diego, super, super impressive to me.
I am really impressed by not just RSL's front-end talent, because they have generally had a couple of like really impactful game-breaking players, even in their leaner years as they're changing from owner to owner. There is depth at this point as well that you can project that makes me think they're not going to fall off. And at this point, I think that they are the clear fifth in making it a top 5 in the Western Conference. I think RSL looks best positioned to make us speak about the conference in that way instead of just focusing so heavily on LAFC, San Diego, Seattle, and Vancouver like we did last year as well. How do you fit Diego Luna most naturally into this team? Suddenly has become one of the most intriguing tactical and lineup decisions in the league right now, because that front 3 as it was constructed, everyone looks like they know exactly what they're doing. Everyone is really dynamic. Now, again, Xavier Gozo is playing mostly nominally as a wingback, but I think that we know it's about as wing back he is, it's even less
Wing
wing back
back
than
with
Max
aggressive air quotes,
Arfston in Columbus, right? Where he is a wing back. He is running backward. Gozo, I don't think is necessarily looking that far back, and nor should he be with his dribbling ability and his ability to take guys on and progress the ball accordingly. Another note that I had from this, my top 3 pronunciations of Morgan Gilavogi from that one game alone. In third place, we have Gulavigi.
Okay.
Not bad. That's a sight read. I think that we were kind of there when he signed. Then there was Gilavargi.
Oh,
that one was the one that broke me, and I was glad I was already writing these down, was Gilaviogi, which is just genuinely someone just handed it to you, and you were like,
good luck, pal.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't even know what that's predicated upon. What language makes GUI?
What language?
Well, it starts with a G, so let's go there.
Yeah, what more do you need?
And then we're already off the bridge at that point. Otherwise, though, when you look at his partnership with Sanabria on the left side, I think is also just incredibly dangerous. And I think that there's something that can be really difficult about a winger wanting to commit to the underlap when they're left-footed, and usually they're going to want to stay a little bit wider. But I think that Gilavogi's range of passing is such.
Gilavarga, thank you.
There you go, Gilavarga. Yeah, Gilarvia.
Yeah, Guardiola, Jeff. Thanks.
Morgan Guardiola is just so efficient in those half spaces and so effective as well that I think it just. I don't know if that's where Diego Luna goes anymore. I don't think I'm splitting up Gilavogi and Sanabria on the left side, who, by the way, Sanabria as well, who I'd put as my newcomer of the year front runner. I think a fullback might win it this year. I think if he keeps playing like this, and I think especially if, we're not supposed to vote on international play, but if he makes the World Cup and starts playing regularly for Uruguay in a World Cup knockout run, I don't know, the cachet is going to be there. Brand recognition will be there, and that certainly helps win these awards. So
Yeah, man. Sanabria is so good. Gilavogi is so good. My last thought on this game, I have more, but for the sake of time, David Vasquez for San Diego looks so good. He gets to start over Anibal Godoy in this midfield, and Anival Calre drops deeper to play next to Jeppe Tverskov. And Vasquez is the 20-year-old. He was brought in from Philly midway through last season, never cracked their first team, but was regarded really highly around Major League Soccer. San Diego go get him. He doesn't look out of place, first of all, as a starting player, and he looks like he's actually actively helping this team as a starting player. I'm sort of wondering, and I want to see a little bit more because we are still kind of just getting acclimated to what Vasquez is going to bring. I would not be shocked if he is somebody whose name comes up in the December camp that I believe we're going to get for the USMNT this winter, and maybe more than that down the line.
Well, Jeff, what game not involving Gil Varga did you think was the biggest result of the weekend?
Former MLB pitcher Gil Vargas, I thought had a really good game, but I think most instructive, and this is maybe less about the game itself because it finished 1-0, but I think San Jose going to Vancouver, even in the state they're in, and keeping a clean sheet and getting that smash and grab win without Timo Werner in the lineup. We've been saying a lot of really nice stuff about the Vancouver Whitecaps for about 12 months at this point, right? And generally the assumption is if you can go toe-to-toe with these Whitecaps and you can get a point or 3, you're credible, right? That is a very credible result, and that's tape you're going to be studying really closely because that blueprint will work well against other teams. I think that if San Jose is able to collect these 3 points, I know that Vancouver, rotated out some guys. Sebastian Berhalter did not start this game. Thomas Mueller and Ryan Gold did not start this game. But beyond that, they had Prizo and Blackman in the back, which has been, since Veselinovic's injury last summer, maybe their best 2 center backs. They had Brian White in the starting lineup as well, right? Emmanuel Sabi on the wing. So, they did have enough where you would look and say that they fielded a team expecting to get all 3 points on the day. And credit to them, they did actually play really well. They took a dozen shots. They outcreated San Jose when you look at the total bulk of the chances. But one really good sequence by Bolaru that is pretty much every box-to-box midfielder's ideal dream goal, which is pretty much to take the ball off of an opponent's foot, turn around, and pretty much immediately bang it into the net from outside the box. That's got to feel so, there's those you play enough futsal or men's leagues games, whatever, they're just you build your own hits where it's that just felt clean, as I executed that was one that I'll just remember. It's probably that, but also he got paid really well to do that too, and these days that goes a long way. I don't know. The other thing that really just stood out to me is Daniel had a great game, and I think that we've gone back and forth sometimes, Joe, about whether or not Daniel is a credible, not just starting level goalkeeper he is, but like someone that you can win playoff games and series and advance through a bracket with. And I think that 6 saves, a couple of sweeps outside of his box, a couple of the saves, pretty impressive given the timing of it. Like, you can go pretty far if you have a goalkeeper you can rely on in a moment like that.
Yeah, I think Daniel was good in this game, and just San Jose as a defensive unit were good. Maybe a little fortunate not to concede a penalty when Reed Roberts brings Emmanuel Sabi down in the box. I'm not a referee, and I whenever these sorts of calls get made, I realize that maybe I don't understand the rules as well as I thought I did. But setting that aside, this was a shorthanded Caps team, as you said. But it also, and you mentioned this too, Jeff, it was not San Jose at full strength either, because Werner was having some back problems, and so we didn't get Mueller versus Werner as the game was billed until the second half. Yeah. San Jose just looked like a serious team, right? They looked like a team that actually delivered on the addition by subtraction mantra that they sort of had to roll with because they lost more goal contributions across their DP trio. Arango and Martinez. Martinez wasn't the DP, and Espinoza. They lost more goal contributions from those 3 players than any other team lost in a trio, and that includes the Philadelphia Union. And we know how things are going for them right now. But San Jose somehow aren't missing those pieces because now defensively they are actually competent. Their numbers are way, way better this year. They look more serious. They're not pressing quite as high, and their press looked abysmal last season structurally, and so they're not like conceding chances that way. They're getting defensive effort from the front, and they can still show flashes of creativity. I think that's still probably where you're looking for a little bit more if this team is going to go and actually compete, where Werner is a really good player. He looks like it. Judd looks like a starting caliber 9. Sakiris is a starting level player. If you could put somebody on the right wing and make it a good player, I think this team would really soar, and they could be one that we're talking about as being that 5th team or maybe even something better than that in the West. But this, to me, Jeff, I'm completely with you. This was a San Jose legitimate performance, and it makes me think that they could do some stuff this year.
That begs the question for me, for both of you. Like, with San Jose, what is your shorthand understanding of them? Like, if you're looking at them playing a team on the weekend, like Joe, like San Diego RSL, like it's kind of like, ooh, like interesting systems, very good players, very exciting youngsters. Like, this is appointment viewing. With San Jose, I do think I tend to kind of overlook them. I think because of their recent past, Bruce Arena changing that a little bit maybe, and then obviously this season as well. I wouldn't say they're quite appointment viewing for me, however. Like, what do you understand them to be at present?
I mean, Jeff, to me, when I watch this team, they're a pretty compact defensive outfit. Not like in their own third, like FC Dallas or Minnesota were last year, but they're a pretty compact defensive outfit with some high-quality talents that can punish you when they do have the ball. It is not; they don't play the most attractive style. Let's not forget, this is a Bruce Arena coach team. Like, he does
pragmatic.
not care about that stuff. It is pragmatic. The thing that's propelling them is that there actually is more unity with how they defend as a group. I'm not talking about like locker room vibes or whatever. Like, they actually are playing together as a unit now, and they're trying harder, and their attacking talent is just different. It's not necessarily better. I don't think it is better right now, but it's different in a way that actually works for this team. So I don't blame you for not having them as appointment viewing. They're by far not the sexiest team in MLS, but I think they are actually a good team now, Jeff, in a way that they just really haven't been in a long time.
Yeah, and it's kind of reminding me of like New England just before the points record year.
Sure.
Where like points record year, it just looked like they were a machine, right? And before it looked like they were building a machine. And right now they're building the machine, right? Like I really like what you're saying, Joe, about like the right wing being an area for creativity because it used to be. Fun facts with numbers, and we're taking small sample sizes here, so obviously it's a little reckless. But 5 games is where it starts to be fun and reckless. So 14 chances created in 5 games for young Nico Sakiris, which is just a fantastic return from your number 10. That's 2.8 or so per 90, right? Just for a ballpark reference, 2.97 chances per game across a full season in 2025 would have donned you the name Carlos Heel. So, like, if it's sustainable, that is a really useful level of chance creation. Now, the hard part, you know who led MLS in chances created per 90 last year among qualifiers, with a whopping 3.97 of them created down the right wing half of the time. They don't call it a Viet, no, in San Jose. It was Christian Espinoza, and he's gone. So, look, it's the guy whose contract they forgot they renew is pretty much the piece that would have elevated them potentially to this like status that we're talking about. My only thing is, do they get Timo Werner if they have Christian Espinoza, knowing how John Fisher works, right? Like, is the idea of spending to bring in another foreign star on a 7-figure salary, is that going to be too rich for his blood if they actually do pay Christian Espinoza like top dollar? I don't know. Like that's a really fun sort of like what if that we're starting to build in real time here, and we'll certainly talk about Nashville yet again, I'm sure, before the end of this episode as well, for things Christian Espinoza is currently doing. But if they can find someone who can be that auxiliary chance creator down the right side, the potential for this team is enormous. It really is.
All right. Well, no idea why Joe thought we would be going long on this episode, as we are 20-ish minutes in, and we've talked about 2 games. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back and talk about much more MLS action still to come. Welcome back, everybody. We hope you never left. We're going to keep talking about most impactful, most intriguing, for whatever reason, biggest results of the weekend, and I am going to take us to FC Cincinnati's 4-3 win over Montreal, because I have no idea what to make of this result, and that's why it's the biggest one for me, is because it felt like it was going to be a get-right game for Cincinnati. It felt like they could figure some things out against a Montreal team that have obviously not been particularly strong. And Montreal looked the better team for large stretches of this one, right up until they go down a man, they get the red card. But even then, they still take the lead again, and it's like 2 relatively late goals for FC Cincinnati, for people who haven't seen or paid attention to this one, that ends up giving them the win. But it's kind of Montreal that give them the win, because it's like Piet giving the ball away. It's a like really poor defensive play at the back post that leads to just kind of like a tap in. And it's not as though Cincinnati had this like consistent team-wide pressure and were just creating chances left and right. It sort of felt like a team that had a little bit more defensive stability seized this one out. Montreal just don't have that. So what could have been a it was Cincinnati who went the man behind. It could have been a very different result. Like, we pulled ourselves up, we got the win against adversity. Now we're on the right track. I still come away from this one thinking, like, are they good? Do they know what they're doing? Are they playing together? Does Evander ever pass? What's happening here? I need someone to help me make sense of this one.
Jeff's nodding. Jeff, what do you think about this?
One, very fun watching you lose your earbud briefly.
Yeah, it was good, right?
We're trying to go
Super
into this.
Smooth.
Second, I read something that really stuck with me, and I'm finding now that I have like a little bit more time in my day, weirdly, I'm finding a lot more like just team specific coverage that I really want to continue to kind of lean towards, and I think that Nate Gilman's doing some fantastic stuff.
Nate's the best.
With preseason streams in Cincinnati, and actually he kind of foresaw this result in a way that I thought was really clever. And he wrote, about the struggles to continue to adapt as FC Cincinnati when Pat Noonan is so committed to a 3 center back system. And basically the idea of it, just kind of like high level, this isn't necessarily projecting this onto Nate, but the idea is pretty much when you commit to a 3rd center back, you are limiting your ability to modify what you do ahead of that line of your team, because you have one less player than a lot of teams are going to operate with, whether that is for the midfield or the final third, right? That's the trade-off you're making. You're either taking off an attacker for an extra defender, or you're taking off a midfielder. And these, especially in a league like Major League Soccer, where most teams are investing most in these pools of players, that is where you actually see like, oh, RSL suddenly looks really different than last year. This is where it's like, okay, this is where San Diego is so difficult, because they did find those midfielders where now their engine room's going to work no matter who's in it. Well, the way that this has been distributed right now for Cincinnati, if you lose Evander, it is really difficult to see how you're creating chances at this point. If you lose Kevin Denke, it's more difficult to see where these are funneling towards and who's going to finish them. And I think that when you look at Cincinnati right now, they have also struggled since Nobodo started to kind of pick up his rash of injuries to field the midfield that they need to be able to keep the ball in the attacking half as often as they need to really look like a dominant team. And right now, Cincinnati looks like a team that is riding its luck much more than it has since, I don't know, Jaap Stam was head coach. And that's just, again, it's not something you necessarily... I know. It's like I had to think, like, Cincinnati went through coach after coach after coach for a while there. You got Ron Jans, you got Alan Koch, you've got a young Johan DeMay interim. Just like what a litany. But, under Stam, that was another one of those things. There were some talented moments with that core, but they couldn't continually get the battery to light the bulb, right? And now eventually they figured this is the thing that keeps the engine running. Well, you look at this game in Montreal, again, we said a lot of nice things about Vancouver, and so I take the San Jose result a little bit more credibly. We've said a lot of not so glowing things about Montreal, and they've deserved all of them. And so when you are squeaking results by the skin of your teeth against Montreal, I am worried about their ability to adapt in MLS 3.0 or whatever they're branding it. It's really like 4.5. But, Joe, I don't know. Like, I think you were a little ahead of me on I'm worried about this season for this team. Like, has it gone pretty much what you expected it would go at this stage?
No, I thought this team would be better, and I think I was wrong. Now, I don't think they're probably quite as bad as they've shown in MLS play so far with just the 6 points through 5 games. They've been trying to manage 2 competitions, and they just lost to Tigres, and there's just been a lot going on for this team. So I do want to be a little cautious with all this. That said, I think I ignored or just didn't see, and I'll hold my hand up for this, some of the flaws in the roster build in Cincinnati. That gets to what you're talking about and what Nate wrote about. I read that same piece, and it really is excellent. It's this idea that Cincinnati just don't have a lot of guys who can hurt you with the ball. Where it's not three Columbus Crew-esque center backs where, well, actually 2 of them are converted fullbacks, and Moreira maybe could play as an 8 in this league, who knows?
Yeah.
And they're really adventurous and fun and creative. It's 3 big boys. It's in this game, it's Miazga, Robinson, and Haglund it's Powell. It's Alvis Powell in this game. He's playing the right-sided center back role. I guess he's a converted fullback. Whatever, point stands. It's big boys that they have in the back that are not adventurous on the ball. And then you go into midfield and think, okay, well, maybe there's a little bit of creativity there. No, it's Nwobodo and it's Buka, who are both fairly conservative. Buka a little less so than Nwobodo, but they're not going to do a ton of progression for you. Certainly not going to do a ton of creativity for you. Okay, well then let's go to Evander. Evander doesn't maybe play the distributor role as well as some other 10s in MLS, but it's still, I think when you watch him, clearly an impact player, and I think he can still be the star for this team. Okay, that's fine. And then you look, well, what are the other positions? You have your wingbacks, and all of a sudden so much is falling on Evander and on the wingbacks, and Brian Ramirez has not convinced me yet on left wingback spot. Ender Ejinike has, and that dude looks amazing, and he helped unlock this game for Cincinnati, where they got played off their own field for the first 40 minutes of this game. Like, Montreal were so much better than them for the first 40 minutes. And finally, they figured out how to break a little bit of the man marking scheme, which I can't imagine why it took them so long, truly. You had all week to train that Montreal man marking everybody every week. And Ejinike finally breaks in and creates problems, and Cincinnati are on the board. But if it's not him and it's not Evander, it's nobody, really, for this team to create, and that's a little bit of a problem. I'm not smashing the panic button. It's way too early for that. This team, I think, still does have talented players. But if I'm the front office, I'm very much looking ahead to the summer window and thinking, can we add one more non-striker creative attacking piece to help elevate us a little bit? And then you hope in the meantime the defensive work improves, because this was Miazga's first start of the season so far. And I don't know if it was him shaking off the roster, if it was Cincinnati as a whole trying to figure out how to adapt to him. Defensively, they were bad. They were way too gappy. They were slow to step and engage the ball. And that you can't do. When you have as many of these defense-first pieces, you need to be elite defensively and then hope that the attack is good enough. I think it's possible that they reach that level, but they're just not there right now. And that is something to flag moving forward.
Joe, for which Ohio team do you have more concern?
Oh, that's such a hard question.
That could be a full episode. Yeah.
Wow. I will say I'm probably a little bit more worried about Columbus, but I'm worried about both of those teams, man. I mean, Columbus lose 2-1 to Toronto. I think that was the first game of the weekend on Saturday, which means it feels like ages ago. I just don't know that this Crew roster is it, and I don't know that Henrik Rydstrom is pushing all the right buttons either. Where Rossi is now a little bit further away from goal than you would probably like him to be. Moreira is not able to be quite as adventurous stepping forward because he's playing as a right-sided center back, defending as a right-sided center back in a back 4. So he is then pinned a little bit deeper in this team. And then there's the roster build question of it all when it comes to Daniel Gazdag, who doesn't really seem like is in the plans at all for this team. And so you're already playing with a hand tied behind your back. There's no true creator in this roster. And then maybe Rydstrom is even handicapping them a little bit beyond that. I still think the Crew are going to be okay. I just think okay for them maybe looks like a wild card spot in a way that when the season started, I thought okay was maybe 6th in the East.
Why do you think it'll be okay? Like, what have you seen?
Yeah, good question. Abu Ali looks elite in this league.
Good.
I think he's very good. Rossi is elite in this league. They need that piece to tie them together. But between those guys and Orfston, I think there is some attacking juice here. They just need to be platformed a little bit better. And I think the midfield depth is okay. I mean, I think Gomes looks pretty good. I think Shambo is fine. There's a lot of pieces in here that I feel fine about. I just don't think they're humming in a way that maybe I would have thought they'd be humming a little bit early on in the season. I think more has changed than I thought, and I think they needed a creator more than I thought. But almost all the other stuff, and maybe that matters less without the things I just said being there, but those are the things that are keeping me optimistic about this team. But I'm still worried, man. I'm very worried.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And like, I think a lot of this does look like post-Darlington Nagbe issues, right? Like a lot of this just looks like you have lost one of the most possession-friendly midfielders in the history of this league, right? And that will affect any team. Now, I'm worried about both of these teams, Taylor, for very different scales, right? Like for Cincinnati, I'm worried about their ability to continue to contend in the top 4 of the Eastern Conference as currently constructed, right? I think that they need to, release the handbrake a little bit. I think that, having the player that necessitates releasing the handbrake would be even better, right? And that's maybe a summer Cincinnati sort of thing. With Columbus, again, when you have a coach who comes in preaching from the gospel of relationism, which I think a lot of us generally see as something of a false gospel and more of like a supplemental file that you kind of sneak into the inside cover of the book. Like it's just an idea that you trust your players and you don't tell them exactly how to do their jobs because they're all talented and smart soccer players who have gotten this far in their careers off of talent and smarts, right? And like, I think it looks like an easy job if you can be the coach to unlock it, because I think a lot of it looks like let the ball roll and get a lot of applause and credit. It's not that easy. It never has been that easy. Like at Truth, obviously, it's reductionist to imply such. But this right now is a coach who doesn't seem to know what the best team looks like that he has with the players available, doesn't really know how to structure it, is setting it up in really kind of negative ways. When you look at like that 4-4-2 that was brought out a week or two ago, I agree with you, Joe. Like, I think that there is the attacking talent and certainly the defensive talent. And like, there is talent. They have more talent on this roster than a lot of teams that will be in and about the playoff spots this year as well. It doesn't look like they're really close to pulling it together. And I think that in terms of me changing how I view the crew, they certainly look less talented than the team in 2023 and 2024, just on total vibes, like for likes. That's tough.
It just really seems to me like Cucho is tying all this together. Like Cucho was the guy that was going to do so much for this team and did so much for this team, and now that he's gone, they really needed to nail the attacking midfield signing last season and just didn't. I think that has set them back more than I thought. But yeah, Jeff, I'm with you on all that.
Another game I would like to mention before we go to break. It's not really a panicky one for either side because I think we kind of know what at least one of these teams is going to be, but I want to spotlight how good of a coach Michael Bradley is, because anybody who can get Wilfred Zaha scoring goals at this point is doing a great job, and his Red Bull team found a way to let Wilfred Zaha score a goal in what really should have been 7-1. I know why the goal is chalked off at the end. It ends up 6-1 due to a very tight offside decision, but really could have been like 8 or 9-1. At a certain point in this game, right around the time that the Red Bulls go down a man, it just felt like there was not going to be any level of fight back or any ability to fight back. I felt very bad for Ethan Horvath in this game, who I thought had some big saves. And for a few moments, I thought, like, if I squint, maybe you could be the U.S. goalkeeper.
Absolutely not.
and then
He's
he got
squinting.
a few hung on him, and then a few more hung on him as well. I did think this was a very strong performance from Charlotte against a pretty weak performance from the Red Bulls.
Yeah, I mean, this was Red Bulls missing their 2 opening day starters at center back, who we already had questions about, and now Michael Bradley's playing a number 8, I think, in Gustav Berggren as a center back, and he gets a red card in this game, and even before that, Matty Dos Santos at left back gets absolutely dusted on Charlotte's opening goal sequence, and it's just... It's Red Bull being dogmatic and Michael Bradley being dogmatic, which I appreciate as he's trying to build some of this culture. But these are the lumps that you take, right? These are the lumps when you trust an undersized, underdeveloped defensively left back in Matty Dos Santos. These are the lumps that you take when you don't really want to play actual center backs at center back, and frankly don't have a lot of high quality center backs in the first place. All of a sudden, you have a performance like this. I think this game was closer than the scoreline indicator, rather than what Taylor said about the other way around. Red Bulls had chances that just didn't fall. But this is a game to forget for the Red Bulls. But it is symptomatic of where the roster build is right now, where there just aren't a lot of serious actual defenders in this team. And we talked about it after the Orlando game. As fun as that was on the first day of the MLS season, that some teams are going to punish this undersized, underexperienced Red Bulls backline, and that's exactly what happened.
Joe, do you know why Charlotte weren't able to get as many goals as maybe they could have? Why
Ryan Bailey didn't play guitar beforehand?
It's because Ethan Horvath was in goal. Thank you.
Good for
very
him,
much.
man.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Joe's not having it at all.
Love that.
But I did think this was really good from Charlotte, who did get like players scoring goals that they needed to score goals. Pep Biel also on the score sheet. Just a strong fun performance from Charlotte. Certainly less so for Red Bull supporters, but like for me, a neutral in this one, who's maybe leaning slightly towards the Red Bulls because of the youth movement. I was in the end like very entertained by what Charlotte were doing and how many opportunities Goodwin got before he got his brace in this one. So credit to Charlotte. Less so the Red Bulls. Certainly less so the Red Bulls' defensive setup and options at present. We're going to take a break and come back and talk about the many more games still to be discussed from this past weekend. Back soon. Welcome back, everybody, to the Total Soccer Show. It's time for segment 3, where we do a bit of a whip around, a fast review of many different games. But there's one I have to mention for a moment, because it's not one that I think was on my appointment viewing card heading into the weekend, but I'm glad I ended up watching. Dallas versus Houston. Were we expecting this to go the way it did? Were we expecting this many goals and this much back and forth?
No, I was not.
Then Jeff, why it happened, Jeff? How it be so?
Sometimes teams are like compatibly flawed and compatibly good, and it leads to just some like really
teams
fun...
and couples.
Teams and couples,
some
right?
relationships. There you go.
And like in Texas, you know, they know each other so well. They're in such a relationship historically. I just like it was one of those where I wasn't watching this game either, Taylor. Like this was not the one in that time slot that I was like really fixated upon, but. Like every time I would look at my phone, and I'm like a monster who has Let's FotMob send live updates for every MLS game on my lock screen, so I can just like see the scoreboard without unlocking my phone. Like every time that scoreboard changed, I just kind of tilted my head like a curious dog. I just didn't really know what was going on there, and then I looked in that first half, just 5 goals, 2-3. I think a team scoring 3 goals in 4 minutes is generally just fun. Right? But like it makes it so now the summary of this game is Dallas had a 4-goal showing. Just don't watch those 4 minutes. And it looked like a really good team performance. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was. I thought Pedro Musa justified a lot of the hype that certain people have thrown his way. Like, including the goal that he almost doesn't get for being offside when he's like 3 yards onside.
Clearly on, yeah.
Interesting flag there. But then the way he I know he is trying to center that pass for a teammate, but with how much he has been hyped up on this show, there's a part of me that's like, nah, he was banking it off the defender. He knew what he was doing. He knew how he was scoring that goal, and he did. It was, I believe it's Dwayne Octavius Holmes, sadly, who concedes the own goal there. But then it's Musa at the back post for the nutmeg volley with the instep foot from tight distance. But still, like a high degree of difficulty just to kind of make sure you get a foot to it and keep it on frame. I thought he was excellent. I thought Dallas were excellent, and Farrington as well with the brace. It was just kind of goals galore and a red card, a recurring theme this weekend. Lots of teams scoring goals, lots of teams having players sent off.
It was nice to see Dallas look like they could manufacture a few chances against a lower defense, where Houston just gave them the game. Right? Not to say that they gave them the scoreline, but they made Dallas create. And I thought Dallas did a passable job of it. Without Musa in the starting 11, he was dealing with a little bit of an ankle knock. The broadcast said he's got games for Croatia coming up, and so there's things going on for him that you didn't want to run him into the ground. And it didn't matter because Dallas still won it anyway, as we said, and he came off the bench and was the best player on the field by a mile. I'm not going to do the whole, oh, well, Dallas, enjoy him while you can bit. Instead, I'm going to do the whole Dallas, imagine if you gave genuinely one of the 5 best players in MLS more help. Because I don't think this is a bad team. I think this team's fine. I think this team could potentially win a playoff series. I don't expect that to happen, but I think it's possible. But just imagine if you went out and found one more dude to put next to Pedro Musa, who's not Valiente, who's not Santi Moreno, who apparently is coming in from Fluminense, which is a good signing. I think Santi Moreno is a really useful MLS player who will make this team better. I like that deal. But imagine if you just did one more thing. You had the DP spot open for it. And Musa is so transformatively, trophy windowingly opening good. Like, he is so unbelievably good for this team, and I just wish that we could see him playing games that feel like they matter just a little bit more. But Dallas still, I think, should be pleased, even though there was tons of mistakes in this game from them. I think they should be pleased enough with those performances and think that those mistakes are going to fade a little bit when it comes to some of the distribution from the back. On the Houston side,
think the goalkeeper should pass it straight to the opposition to score a goal?
It depends on if I'm backing the over on the game, Taylor. Because if that's true, then I maybe.
Good answer.
Sorry, too soon after the whole Columbus, Yaya Boa, Derek Jones. It might be too soon. My bad. I think for Houston,
Polymarket informed me it was not too soon.
Oh, good.
Anybody who bet that it was lost out. So
I had the under on too soon, so I think we're good on that.
Okay.
When I saw this Houston lineup, I thought this game actually is going to be quite fun because Houston look squishy. They look really, really soft defensively. The double pivot in this game is Hector Herrera and Jack McGlynn. They're running Dwayne Octavius Holmes at right wing back and Lawrence Anali at left wing back, which they've been doing all season. But there's not a ton of defensive juice in there, more from Holmes probably than from Anali. And then they're running Antonio Carlos, who is 33. And I watched him closely in this game just because I became enamored with his mistakes early on. He's just out of gas. And we're in the 5th week of the season. That's a huge problem. Like Houston don't have other starting level center backs to play over him. This team is so flawed still in how they've been built. I think they are better this year than they were last year. That seems pretty clear. But I have real deep questions about Houston, and I think we're going to see some other high score lines involving them this year, which is great for the neutral. But they're not done with their little rebuild here.
Dude, the second Dallas goal, I believe it is, Farrington again. It is Andrade and Anali, Joe, to your point about that left side defensively. I would encourage people to just go watch that goal. The two of them take the most confusing and illogical defensive positioning for what is very clearly an attacker holding the ball, waiting for the overlap, going to play it wide, and then the cross is going to come. And both the defenders collapse on the ball carrier, but leave like 3 yards between them to just pass right between and are way too tight. And they both see the overlap and are both just like, yeah, but if we block this pass by giving him space to pass, then nothing will happen. It makes no sense. It looks like people who have never defended being asked to go back and defend, and that's their starting like left center back and left wing back, from what I understand. So I would be concerned if I were Houston and Ben Olsen. But you know what? Ben Olsen never looks confused. He just looks suave. So
or angry.
It's going to be all good, or angry, or furious, or irrationally annoyed.
But one of those four things.
Yeah. Exactly. So, yes, I enjoyed that game in the end. What other games did we enjoy this weekend? Jeff, over to you.
I enjoyed watching St. Louis, New England, and getting to know a couple of new teams 5 games in, or new coaches on their teams 5 games in, with Yoann Demay getting the better over Marko Mitrovic. Really important sort of game for St. Louis, obviously, after, the tragic passing of Yolanda Lewin, the wife of Edu Lewin, who, she had cancer for 2 years, and the team had been very aware of the situation, monitoring, supporting Edu throughout his support of her. And then when she passed, they put together some really nice tributes. They wore black armbands. They had a minute of silence for the from minute 10 to minute 11, if you will, they in honor of his jersey number as well, and then to get a 3-1 win, I think is just like a really emotional sort of moment that hopefully they'll be able to take some energy from. I think when you look at like the on-field stuff, you can kind of start to see what they're going for, but I thought that Andrew Clausen wrote this really well on Backheel, like just very slowly implementing and kind of very gradually sort of installing the philosophy that he wants to get to already. And part of this is just maybe not quite having the players necessary to play whatever his more aggressive homage to Nancy ball would be. I don't know if that's 100% the angle he's going to go in with, but I think that when you look, they're tilting the field pretty well. It's at about a 56% clip right now. Nancy ball at its best was usually about 66%, so maybe a little bit less aggressive there, but also more willing to circulate and retain possession in other spaces. I think that Edelman and Durkin midfield, it's fun to watch from just look at this domestic partnership sort of standpoint, and St. Louis wanting to go to some of the roots that they claimed they wanted to have when they launched, but never really manifested under Lutz Pfannenstiel in terms of actually being one of these like historic American soccer cities that tries to lean in on American young players and develop them, right? Like, so I think that they're starting to go more in that direction under Corey Ray. Simon Betcher also is just an absolute scrapper, and on the forward line really gets into the head of Matt Turner at one point before a free kick in the second half. And I don't even think that was before he got, volleyed from 30 yards out or whatever by Marcel Hartl. So just a really fun game. I'm not that worried about New England coming off of it either. I think that they're still working through things in real time. Carlos Heel looks rejuvenated in his role, which has a little more freedom than what he was playing under Caleb Porter as well. So I don't know, Joe, what stood out to you about this game that I haven't kind of sleepwalk through.
I was more interested in St. Louis than New England in this game. New England coming off of that big win against Cincinnati, which was good for them and I imagine helps in the locker room a little bit. But we know that Cincinnati aren't the finished product just yet, and that MLS is a little bit weird. I thought New England actually started this game well and found a couple of looks that could have altered the game more drastically against St. Louis. But then St. Louis kind of grabbed control of this game. And we are starting to see some of the Nancy-esque, maybe someday we'll call them Demey-esque patterns in this team, where they're playing the 3-4-3 shape. They are very happy to invite pressure to them so that they can play around it and into the space that they've opened up elsewhere on the field. And there's some really nice moments of that happening in this game. The thing that I think we're still waiting on for St. Louis is exactly what you said, Jeff. It's the rest of the talent. And we got to see Mamadou Fall off the bench in this game very, very late in the game. He's still working his way towards being healthy enough to play starting minutes for this team. And then there's the attacking stuff too, right? Where there were some really nice switches and sequences that got the ball over to Pompeo on the right side, as that was sort of like the end goal of let's draw all the pressure to us so we can have our winger go 1v1 on the far side. And then the winger is Pompeo, right? Who's a okay MLS depth piece, but he's just not the guy you want at the end of some of those sequences. So Hartel just needs more help in the attack, and he scores an absolute banger of a goal, one of the best we'll see in MLS all season. But I think St. Louis still need just that bit more. But for the first win of a new era, it was a good performance, and I think it does make me feel a little bit more optimistic about where they're going. And it forced me to look back, and Andrew wrote about this as well, but where they've been already this season, where they've had a really difficult schedule as well. They've had San Diego, Seattle, and LAFC as their 3 games leading into this one. They lost all those games. Yeah. They didn't play horribly in any of those games. So I think if you're Yohan Demey, you think, wow, this maybe wasn't even our best performance of the season. And when we start to integrate some of the guys we have and hope to sign more guys in the summer, yeah, okay, maybe we're starting to cook with something here. So I'm seeing what sort of gooey butter cake Yohan Demey is whipping up here,
Question of like genuine ignorance for me about the Revs. Having done their preview, maybe I bought too much stock in Peyton Miller. Maybe I was too hyped about him. Was I wrong for expecting him to feature more at this point in the season? He's not been started. Fit. Okay, cool. Yeah. So do we think he will be the starter when he is fully fit and ready to go?
I would guess so, and I think that there's also a moment in this game you can point to as like if Mitrovic is looking for the tape to show Will Sands to say, hey, this is why you're on the bench for the next one whenever it is time. It's Chris Durkin's goal on the go-ahead and eventual match winner just before halftime. It's a corner kick. It's a pretty straightforward sort of sequence, but Sands just gets caught flat-footed and lets Durkin get on the wrong side of him and is just watching. Like, doesn't even really look like he's trying to position himself to head the ball away. But it's one of those far post sort of encounters that you would expect your other side fullback to be able to manage, right? And I think that with Miller, that's not why he's coming in. He's not coming in to stop corner kicks per se. But I think that then if you can bring him into this team, it does add width. You saw a lot of Carlos Gil drifting back and forth, but also a lot more to the left in certain cases, right? And for the first 15 minutes or so, they had really been trying to target the left side of St. Louis's defense using the right side of the New England attack. And that was working pretty well until they switched it over, and that's when they get the goal. But they just couldn't continually build that sort of we're coming at you from both flanks, and also we have the talent to shoot the gap up the middle. So they look a little bit lopsided at present, and I think Peyton Miller helps fix that.
Fair enough. Let's talk about Inter Miami's 3-2 win on the road against NYC FC. Joe, they were without Rodrigo De Paul for this one, and I look it up, and it sounds like he has a case of Neymar birthdayitis, so we hope he recovers quickly from that one. Right. But in his absence, they do get the win in not at all controversial fashion. Inter Miami move it up the standings.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for Andrew Weeby's decisive word on whether Dane St. Clair handled the ball outside the box or not. I'll admit, you mentioned Andrew Clausen earlier. Ben Wright, and I have a group chat where we plan out our winners and losers column for Backheeled each weekend. And Ben was keen to write about this handling of the ball moment from St. Clair in the NYC FC game. Go watch the highlight if you care enough to do so, if you haven't seen it already. It does look a bit on the initial sequence like St. Clair handles the ball outside the area, like exactly like Maxime Crepeau did at the exact same stadium, which is hilarious. And it is a good bit. And my reaction was, I think the angle was not conclusive enough at all that they gave us on the broadcast to tell, and it makes me think that maybe they didn't have an angle conclusive enough to make that decision in the first place. And but I was outvoted by my fellow winners and losers, and so I don't know. I'm not team St. Clair. So obviously did it that it's a tragedy that NYCFC lost this game. I think that it was quite borderline, and I don't really mind the call not being given, if I'm totally honest. Maybe that makes me a Miami shill.
It was less clear and obvious than the Crepeau one, I'll give you that.
For sure. Yeah, that's definitely true. It's hilarious that happened, though, and that it's happened in NYC FC Stadium twice. Once for, once against, I suppose. It's
with
hilarious
Canada Internationals, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. Jesse Marsh is sweating bullets right now, I think is what's happened there. It's hilarious that DePaul... Well, I mean, our best wishes, let me just say it this way, to Rodrigo DePaul as he recovers from his contusion. And hope he makes it back from Argentina safely whenever he's able to do that. This was a fine performance of Miami, who have already had their first and biggest goal of the season dashed when they lost to Nashville in CONCACAF Champions Cup play. That was their whole thing, is let's go win Champions Cup. Let's find a way to get, leverage that into getting into Copa Libertadores, being at the next Club World Cup. None of that happened. Nashville played a good series against them, and Miami just weren't enough to actually get over the line. And I think they're going to be pissed about how that all came together. They were not amazing in this game, but they weren't full strength either. They're missing multiple pieces, and I do sort of wonder if they're going to turn on the Jets when they get back home and actually get to bet in their new stadium a little bit. So there's more to come on all that front, but this was a fine to good performance from Miami, albeit a drama-filled one. NYC FC, they can hold their heads up. They were fine in this game as well, just didn't quite do enough.
Yeah, and good to call back to the Nashville win, or Nashville beating them in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. It's something I'd written about afterwards that night for The Guardian, about how, that was the window. And I think that this is now the first time where you look and say, like, has this team maximized its own... We talk about the Messi window so often in MLS context, right? Has MLS done enough with Lionel Messi being stateside to really grow the league and put it on a better footing thereafter? Like, I think you could give a lot of cases on both sides of that, and I think that you could maybe get some louder ones on the no they haven't right now than the yes they have. But I think that when you look at Miami now, this is 10 competitions that have concluded for them. Someone did this math, and I wish I had it in front of me to cite it, and they've won 3 trophies. And that this might have even just been in the Miami Reddit. Like, the idea that if you're counting regular season, Open Cup in the first year, Leagues Cup when it is scheduled in CONCACAF, like there have pretty much been 10 chances where they've had viable chances. You're probably not counting like the 23 MLS Cup when they were in like 14th when Messi signed or whatever, right? That they haven't won a trophy more often than they have won trophies with Lionel Messi, which is probably not the script that they were expecting to be reading from when they signed the greatest player of all time. I think that when you look at how they approached the last winter, like, it wasn't done in a way, and this is what I wrote about for The Guardian, it wasn't done in a way that really respected the competitiveness of this competition, right? It wasn't done in a serious way where you look at, okay, what teams recently in MLS have done the best in continental play? Okay, well, obviously the 2022 Seattle Sounders, who won it with a really difficult bracket, or like a credible bracket. I've seen people try to say that it was a weak bracket. I think that that's just not a credible argument to make whatsoever. It was a difficult pass for them through it. But then when you look after them, you've got the 2024 Columbus Crew, you've got the 2025 Vancouver Whitecaps. These are teams that had established cores, and while like Sorensen was in his first year last year, the players knew each other. The players had lost big games alongside each other. They had won some big games alongside each other, and they knew how to get through those cases. Herman Berterame has no idea how to play with this team behind him. But he is the striker who has been one of the biggest, most consistent goal scorers in CONCACAF for a few years now. So the reason he's there is to win those games, and he doesn't know where his surface is coming from. Dane St. Clair is not used to playing a team that plays as, let's just call it, sometimes recklessly high of a defensive line, where he has all of this space to seed, and he looks like he is really struggling to get used to that compared to Ramsey Ball a year ago, when all of his friends were right next to him the entire game because they barely wanted to leave the defensive half, right? And so then it's a little bit easier when you know what your zone is to be focusing on. And then you throw in like the necessary changes after Jordi Alba and Sergio Busquets retire, and having to bring in new players who just aren't them and don't have that sort of second nature. Like Joe said, that they'll just know where Messi wants to be. They know what he had for breakfast that day, right? Like it's just the whole thing. They were not ready for their close-up. They were not ready for the competition they cared about the most. Will they be ready with results like these for MLS Cup? Certainly now the Supporters Shield, now that they have a less congested schedule than some of their rivals. Yeah, absolutely. But that's not the point. That's the hits for them. They've done that stuff before. This is the first year where we're looking, and we're probably not going to have I've never seen this team do that before moment for the rest of the year. And that's just a weird reality when Lionel Messi is playing in Major League Soccer.
Do we feel like we learned anything about Inter Miami in the absence of Rodrigo de Paul, aside from that he is good? Is this a usable sample size for if he gets injured, if he picks up a knock and can't go for a couple games? Do they have capable replacements, or will they need to strengthen elsewhere?
I think capable replacements. I mean, I don't think you're going to look at a David Ashala, Yannick Bright double pivot as something that you're really thrilled to have in games that you need to win. But Miami's depth is fantastic, right? They've already been tested a little bit with their depth this year. They're going to be tested later on in the year. Yeah, I think we have enough data to say that they're going to be still very, very competitive, even if they're missing a piece like that. But nothing to say that he's going to get unseated or anything along those lines.
Speaking of depth or lack thereof, Jeff, we worried about LAFC at all?
Maybe a little bit. It seems like they're kind of falling apart in real time, and some of this is bad luck when you look at what happened with Stefan Eustáquio, which is like had a dead leg, brought it in, then ran that leg into the referee, which just doesn't happen often, and now is like out with like a very serious complication therein, right? So some of this sort of stuff is like dumb luck and the worst possible way at the worst time. What I'm worried about is they're just not rotating a lot. They haven't lost yet. Like, I think that when you count CONCACAF, like Dos Santos' era has started with 9 unbeaten, and that's tremendous, right? But at the same point, it is running out the same front three over and over again, and Bouanga and Son are going to need to take their rest once in a while, right? And you look in the midfield as well. When Eustáquio is gone, he has quickly become one of the most important box-to-box midfielders in the league. That just implies that you don't have anyone else of that standard. Defensively, they've been good. Hugo Lloris, I think, is looking better than I remember him looking last year as well, which is a perk. But I think I talk about RSL in the sense where they have like selection headaches. I don't think that there are many selection headaches right now with this LAFC side, and maybe you would have expected that some could be starting to pop up when you're competing in both the regular season and continental play so early.
I found this a confusing game because I thought LAFC did end up getting some good chances, and some of them are saved, some of them are just kind of squandered. Son has one that you would usually expect him to score that he does not. On a weekend when Harry Kane also missed a one-on-one opportunity.
They miss each other,
man. Strange weekend overall.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it felt like, kind of as is the case, their attacks were regularly pretty aggressive, pretty blunt at times, and it felt like they kind of kept giving possession back to Austin and allowing Austin to dictate tempo for large stretches of at least the first half. But I think you're also smart to shout out Hugo Lloris, who has a spectacular full stretch save in the final minute of this game to deny Uzuni. And I felt very bad about that for Uzuni, because not only was it a great strike and a great save, but he has what maybe was going to be a goal of the year contender chalked off because of I think it ends up being a very marginal offside for Ilie Sanchez. But it's, for people who haven't seen, it's direct from the corner. It's the corner kind of hit to the top of the 18, and he one-times it out of the air on the full volley and puts it in. But Sanchez definitely obstructing the view. So no goals for Austin, even if it looked like for a moment they might get the 2. But also not the most convincing of results for LAFC. Where else shall we head before we call this weekend reviewed? Should we spend some time with Minnesota-Seattle, Jeffrey?
Should we?
My fingers are still thawing out. I watched that one from the deck overhang of the press box, and was typing the whole time. So my poor hands were holding Earl Grey.
Numb with enthusiasm for your favorite
between
team.
blurbs of that weekend wrap that came out on Monday. There's not much really to say. I think that Seattle. What's been weird is Seattle talking this weirdly big game about a scoreless draw in Minnesota and saying they didn't try to play at all, whatever. Seattle hasn't won any of their last 4 trips to St. Paul. If you go look at lobbing scorchers' social presence right now, you've got Coloriandi and Andrew Thomas both kind of trying to win. Neither of them I don't think have ever won in St. Paul. Pardon my cuss. It's just that is very much how his tone is, and that's how he likes to carry himself in goal, which is just a very funny thing when you are still the young one. It will age better over time, I have no doubts. I still think the Seattle team is in a really good level of confidence and in a really good form. Jordan Morris comes back, or is back in this game as well, and starting to move a little bit more like I remember Jordan Morris moving, which I think is also something to just keep an eye on. But yeah, man, it's I don't know. It was a 0-0 game like any other.
Yeah. Future MLS Western Conference champion, Seattle Sounders. Yes, Joe.
just amazing that we've done DC, Atlanta, and Minnesota, Seattle, and not mentioned Antoine Griezmann officially having signed for Orlando City at this stage, or Nashville,
Well, we were
absolutely
going
dominating them.
Do you want to hear what my transition was going to be?
I would love to.
Well, so Seattle don't love going to Minnesota. That much is clear. But you know who loves going to Florida? That would be Nashville, because you knock out Inter Miami in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and then you throttle Orlando 5-0. That one could have been more as well. Yeah. Orlando, I guess, having a better time given that Antoine Griezmann will eventually be there.
Official.
I am not letting go of my conspiracy theory that he was like this Oscar Pereira guy. Not for me. They've sacked him, and now Antoine Griezmann is officially coming. Maybe it was like Pereira was anti-blue hair. I don't really know what it was. All I know is that that's a bright spot for Orlando, who did not otherwise have many bright spots in this game.
That's Taylor. That's my headcanon now as far as this whole Griezmann thing. Copa del Rey feels more right and other success for Athletic, but it's not nearly as fun. So I'm sticking with your theory there. I mean, we kind of did the Griezmann thing, I believe, on week one after the first reports came out about he maybe was going to join in this window.
Mad.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. He's going to be really good. Orlando have other issues that they need to take care of as well, but this is
so many
for them. So. I'm happy to table my Griezmann thoughts there. Jeff, do you want to do Griezmann thoughts before we do Nashville?
Let's table them. Yeah,
okay.
There's nothing that's gonna change when they don't play a game this weekend. I can save my thoughts on Orlando here. For Nashville, yeah, man, they just can't stop scoring.
Wow.
And I pulled up something felt like a little askew here. It felt like there were more goals than usual, so I looked into it. Through 5 games, both 2025 and 26 had one game that had to get postponed, weirdly. So there's exactly 74 games in each 25 and 26 for their first 5 weekends. 199 goals in the first 5 last year. That is an average of 2.69 goals per game. This year, 224, which is just under 3. Okay, so not much in terms of quantity, but where you look a little closer is the home-away split. Last year, your average score line was 1.4 to 1.3. Okay, yeah, that's a close game. And I think we're more used to reading games this way because of XG, right? Where it's okay, these are really competitive games. In 26 so far, the split is 143 goals by home teams, 81 by away teams. That is a 1.93 to 1.09 split.
Yeah.
On average through 5 weeks. And this is another one of those games, by the way, with the 5-0. The home field advantage has been so pertinent and relevant throughout the season, and Matt Doyle clocked this after 2 weeks, and he said it's probably just a blip, and it's not a blip right now. Home teams are feasting in a way that they haven't been in recent years, and Nashville does some good cooking.
The home team should just keep playing the bad teams. I think that's what's living about what's happened so far.
Yeah.
I'm so curious how teams are going to stop Nashville, right? So Nashville sort of have 2 toggles. The toggle we saw against Miami in Champions Cup was they're going to be much more combative and a little less assertive on the ball. And they're good at that because they're athletic in central midfield. Their DPs are committed and defend, and their backline looks even better with Walezi in over Walker Zimmerman. So they can do that stuff. They can also own the ball and just batter you with it over and over and over again, and they do that against inferior teams like Orlando in this game. And the way that they do that specifically is I haven't looked at the numbers on this, they are probably one of the most right-side dominant teams in Major League Soccer, where in this game, the lion's share of their progression and their entries into the final third, and Ben Wright wrote about this in that backheel piece I mentioned earlier, come through the right side. And it's Nahar and Espinosa, which is predictably going to be an awesome duo in MLS. But it's not just those guys. It's also Mukhtar drifting over into that right channel as well. It's Patrick Yazbek drifting out of midfield, and he's looked really good so far this year. And it's those 4 players combining and just rondoing their way through opposing left sides. And it worked a treat for Nashville in this game. It's worked really well for them throughout this entire season so far. I don't know how teams are going to stop that. Nobody really has done it yet.
And especially because left back is historically, and left center back, the weakest side of most of these MLS teams.
Yeah,
so you're actually targeting a common weakness.
And it's worked super well. So I love watching Nashville. For me, they're another must-watch team in MLS right now. And they look like they're a contender to be crowned the best at basically everything when the season ends.
Yeah, and even if you defend them perfectly and put numbers behind the ball and frustrate everything they're doing, Christian Espinoza will score a no-look goal into the near post top corner from a ridiculous angle.
Right.
He meant to do that?
No way.
I watched it so many times. He doesn't. If he didn't, then he has a very good poker face, because he doesn't give any of the whoops, that wasn't supposed to happen faces. He celebrates like he meant it. For people who haven't seen, I don't know how he could have meant that, and especially when his whole body shape and the way he looked is, I am crossing this ball and then he hits a rocket to the top corner near post. Maybe he just wanted to make Maxime Crépeau feel even worse about his present state of affairs. And I think he succeeded in that regard as well.
Welcome
What a
back.
legend. What a legend. Poker face is all you need. I love that so much.
Oh, man. I love Nashville so much. They're very fun to watch, and I'm glad we ended up talking about them, even if Joe really didn't want to. In the end, I found a way to segue us there.
Thanks,
so
Joe.
good for me. Good for everybody having MLS being very, very fun, unless you're a Red Bull supporter, in which case there's always next week and another 16-year-old to start at a key position. For now, Jeff Reuter, thank you so much for thawing out your fingers to be here with us today.
Just for you guys.
Joe Lowry, thank you for, not being out in the 130-degree sun. I don't know what it is in Arizona, but I'm assuming it's something like that at present.
You're right on the money, Taylor. Happy to be here instead. Thanks, man.
And we are right in between the two of you here in Richmond, Virginia. Listeners, thank you all so much for listening and supporting the show. We very much appreciate it, and we'll talk to you very soon.